All right, so the two things that I use most often in automations are Airtable and ChatGPT. So I'm going to show you guys how you can combine both of them and make a complex automated system that uses Airtable and triggers automations in make.com that generate content using ChatGPT. So the first thing that we need to do is set up a webhook in a new scenario in make.com. So just click on this plus button, search webhook, and grab this webhook module. We're going to create a custom webhook and we're going to name it whatever we want. Honestly, I'm just going to name it example webhook here. Save it and copy that address to your clipboard. This is where we're going to receive our data. So I guess the next thing to do would be to set up our Airtable base. We're going to go into Airtable and we're not going to really need the name, notes, assignee, or status. So honestly, I'll just go through and delete these real quick. And the main thing that we're going to want to implement is a button. So I'll just name this button and we're going to search for button and we'll create the field. You can't create the field without giving it a URL. So the first thing we're going to do is give it a label. We'll just say submit, and within quotation marks, we're going to put the URL. So after the URL, we're going to want to add a parameter. And we're going to give it the record ID so that we can map this entire record, all of the information in this record, in Airtable. So actually, what I'll do is I won't add the parameter now, and I'll just show you guys what it would look like if I click the button and we trigger the scenario. So I'm going to click run once here. We're going to go back to Airtable, click submit, and you can see the webhook was accepted, and it did come through here, but we're not getting any information. We can't send all of the information, at least it wouldn't make sense to. So what we're going to do is we're going to send the record ID from Airtable, and then we're going to use an Airtable module to grab the rest of the content from that specific record. So if we go back into the button here and we adjust this formula to add a question mark, record ID equals, and actually this is going to be inside of the quotation marks. Outside of the quotation marks, we're going to do an ampersand and we're going to say record ID as a formula. So we can just click save, and when we submit this, we're going to click run once, submit this. It's going to say accepted again. We go back here, we can see the record ID came in. We have the record ID for this specific thing here. So if I delete these other records, and we put some content in here, let's just say a Yeti in the Safari. And we go back to make.com, we're going to need to set up a couple things here. So the first thing we're going to need to do is set up our Airtable module so that we can get the rest of the information from that record. And we're going to use the get a record module. Next, we're going to have to connect to the specific base. I don't want to show you guys all of the base that I have, so I'm just going to get this connected real quick. It's super intuitive, so it's easy to do, and I'll have this connected and ready to show you in 1 second. Okay, so once you've selected your base, you're going to be able to select a table from that base. In this case, we only have one table, so I'm just going to select table 1. If it was named something, it would have the name there, but I didn't name it for this tutorial, so I just chose it as example 1, and then we're just going to pop the record ID in right here. If I just X out of this, click OK, save the scenario, and run once, we can see how this works. So I'm going to click submit. The webhook was accepted. We go back into this make.com automation, and you can see that it did in fact work. So what we're getting from the webhook is still just the record ID. We're not getting any of this extra information, but when we get the record, you can see that we have the name right here, a Yeti in the Safari. So just to make things more simple, I'm going to go back here, change this to prompt, and then we're going to add a ChatGPT module. So you can search chat. It doesn't always come up immediately. So if you search OpenAI, you'll be able to grab this, and we're going to create a completion using GPT-4. Just select GPT-4. We're going to give it a system prompt. Write a short paragraph about the following context. And then we'll add the user message that will give it the context. So we're going to feed in the name /prompt. We may have to change that in a second here. So after this run, I'll show you guys how we change that. If you want to change it manually, you can go in here and do a double curly bracket, the number of the module that you're using, and switch it to prompt. And we'll click OK. We'll run this once, click this submit button. You can see it was accepted. Let me X out of some of these, go back into the make.com scenario, and you can see that it's generating the short paragraph. I chose to do a short paragraph because when I've generated these before, it tends to create a story that's super long. And I just wanted this to be quick for the video, but obviously you can adjust this prompt to be anything you want. So you can now see choices, one, message, and you can see in the unusual setting of a warm, sunny safari, etc., etc., etc. It basically gives us a short paragraph about the context that we sent from Airtable. So there are a ton of different ways that you can do this, and one of the other interesting things you can do is you can create a new field called output. It'll just be a single line text. Put it like this, and then we're going to add a new Airtable module. We're going to update a record. The record that we're going to update, let me change my base real quick. Okay, so I've adjusted the base. Now we're going to select the table again. The record that we're going to update is the record ID that we originally grabbed. To be safe, we'll grab it from this, get a record module. And then we don't need to adjust the prompt. The prompt is the same. All we need to update is the output. So we will map the output here, content. You don't have to since we're selecting the first item, but you can just put a 1 there to show that we're grabbing the first item from the output of ChatGPT, and click OK. Now this is fully set up, so what you can do is you would just click this button here, submit. If my scenario is running, we'll use the existing data just to use the button that I just clicked. It's going to take a minute to generate this as it did before, but eventually once this is generated, we can go back into Airtable. We can see that it gets populated right here, and the entire story paragraph is in the output column. So you can do this as much as you want. You can put in anything you want. Let's just say a giraffe in a hotel. Make sure the scenario is running, and then click submit, and you'll see it starts to trigger this automation. And then in a second here, we'll be able to go back into Airtable and we'll see this get filled in real time. So it might take a minute, and here it is in a rather peculiar and amusing situation. A giraffe has become the prime attraction. So you can do this as much as you want. There's a ton of different customization options you can do here. And essentially it just allows you to use make.com automations natively within Airtable without leaving the platform. And there's a lot you can do. So I just wanted to take a quick minute to break down exactly how this works and how you can do it yourself and start implementing this in more of your automations.